Hello everyone, Neil here today, and we have Dan from the Heating Boutique. I'm tempted to say Dan the Radiator Man. And we're going to be having a really interesting discussion today about how Dan reduced reliance on paid advertising and increased, most importantly, the organic traffic and their ability to get in front of new customers organically, and most importantly, making sales from these customers. And over the last 5 months, we've seen sales triple. So before we get into the details, Dan, could you just do a really quick intro?
Yeah, I'm Dan. I head up the team at the Heating Boutique. We sell designer radiators to the masses in the UK. Fast growing online specialist.
Awesome. And just remind me, Dan, who's your ideal target audience? Because I remember when we first spoke, there's a few, isn't there? So who would you say
Yes.
is?
So our primary customers are homeowners, landlords, plumbers, and installers. Really,
Mhm.
anyone that is looking to sort of into home improvements and looking for something a little bit different.
Got it. And before we started working together, could you just describe what you were doing to get new customers, to get people buying more radiators?
Yeah, so we were entirely focused on just Google Shopping, PPC.
Mm.
We had a very small SEO sort of campaign going.
Mm.
It was pretty minor, to be honest. And beyond that, we were just, sort of working with existing customers. Yeah, Google Shopping and existing customers, really.
And by existing customers, like
Just
you mean like referrals or just
yeah, and then
in?
mostly just trade accounts. So
Okay,
customers that had found us before,
got it.
via Google Shopping or whatever, and then we'd set up a trade account with them if they're a plumber, and then just repeat business.
Right. Okay, got it. So it's like the referral, repeat business, and having
Yeah,
partners through the trade accounts, and then from an online perspective, it's really Google Shopping, so paid
just
advertising.
yeah, that was it. Yeah,
Okay, and then I guess you mentioned you had a small SEO company involved, or they may. Sorry, I think you meant small budget.
yeah, a very small budget
Yeah.
for SEO at the time. It for us because obviously the return takes a bit longer with
Yeah.
SEO, and so we were just focusing on the paid side of the business, really, the paid side of the advertising, I should say.
Understood. And when we spoke, or just before we spoke,
Mhm.
what was the actual problem you were trying to solve back then? Because I remember it was quite a unique conversation where you almost gave me this massive problem. But how would you describe it?
Oh, that's a challenge. That was a few months ago now. Yeah, so one of the major issues we had was that by only investing in the paid advertising,
Mhm.
we were effectively we were losing out. I felt completely on market share.
Mhm.
Um, we weren't getting any kind of traffic from longer tail searches that people were using.
Mhm.
We had a few blogs, we had a few Facebook followers, but we really weren't taking advantage of the available sort of resources
Mhm.
to get more people onto the site.
Mhm.
We also felt actually on site that the content wasn't being refreshed often enough and really wasn't relevant to the customers that we had. Um, Compared to some of the competition, I felt we were really far behind um,
Mhm.
on where we needed to be organically, and the longer we left it, the harder that was going to be to catch up.
Mhm.
Um, I believe we also discussed at the time, sort of with the social aspect, that we just weren't maximizing that potential at all. We were posting maybe once a month to Facebook, um, and not taking advantage of anything like user content in any way.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, it was I think when we had that conversation, we were looking at really a kind of turning point in the company where we were discussing potentially a rebrand and how we wanted to position ourselves going forward, and how we wanted to take advantage of, the aspects within the industry that we felt we were really strong with, like automation and providing a better customer service for people. But we weren't really getting that message out there at all.
And so that's really interesting, is when we start talking about the content and the messaging, because it's not, I guess it's not something you automatically assume is going to be part of the conversation, especially when you're talking to a radiator company or radiator business. In my experience, it's been very almost clinical around, we want more sales, we want more products flying off the shelf. So our conversation, back earlier on the year was really interesting for me in terms of like how you were thinking about, the content, and how you were thinking about the messaging, and even the rebranding, which I know is in play at the moment. Could you just go a bit deeper in terms of content? What was it about the content before that? And I know there's a bunch of content that still needs to be applied and refined through the new website when that happens. But what was the issue with the messaging and the content from your perspective on that?
So we were basically using multiple different like marketplace writers for content. So the content tone of voice was different in almost every page. It also was very salesy. There was no sort of desire to actually. It wasn't written in such a way that actually engaged the customer. It was, it was very. It's like that old school kind of sales pitch, like, here's a radiator, here's the benefits, this is why you should buy it, without really engaging the customer and inspiring them in any way. I also felt as well that the content, had been written in stages over time. Some of it was 3 to 4 years old and wasn't even really that relevant anymore for the products that we were selling. Where we changed lines along the way to different ranges, and we were still talking about old ranges and it hadn't been updated. We also wanted to sort of change the way people thought about designer radiators and radiators in general, and try and establish a voice that actually made people interested in the products. I mean, radiators are not the most interesting product in the world, and we wanted to sort of provide insight and knowledge to give customers sort of a really clear understanding of what they're purchasing and why, but in a way that isn't too tech focused or too sales focused, and just sort of, I think I probably mentioned the name Brian Cox when we had that first conversation, and when he talks about space, you kind of sit and you listen, and you understand. More importantly, you understand what he's saying without him actually getting too technical, because he talks in a way that just sort of eases you in, and lets you understand what he's talking about and keeps you completely sort of gripped. And while I don't believe that's entirely 100% possible with radiators to keep you like that interested, but I think there is a way that we could, and I felt that there was a way that we could sort of be knowledgeable but make it fun to sort of learn about the products that people are looking at.
I remember when we were talking, we shared like the refurbishment, which I know you're going through, and you're currently stuck in your loft right now as your refurbishment happens, and my refurbishment. And I still remember this. You almost convinced me that when I do my next refurbishment or we move house, I can't remember the phrase you used, but you said a radiator needs to be part of the interior design. And I'm probably not doing this justice, but I remember that conversation. I'm thinking that's so true. Like, you can't just stick a radiator anywhere, because it almost can make or break a room. But it was when you described it to me, I was like, this guy is Dan the radiator man.
I mean, everyone thinks of a radiator as just a white box in the corner and it's functional and it heats a room. But there are ways to design your room now, and using designer radiators, sort of shoehorning them in doesn't always work anymore.
Yeah.
But you look at areas in, say, a living room where you've got an alcove, for example, and currently you might have a bookshelf in there, but you could turn that into a feature space with a designer radiator. The bright colored designer radiator gives you like this impactful look when you walk in the room. It's then not just functional, but actually part of your interior design. And thinking about that aspect, if you're doing building an extension, thinking about where you want to place the radiators before you build the extension, kind of affect positively how you then decorate your room and furnish it. Because you then start thinking about your furniture placement around that radiator, and rather than thinking, right, I've got all my furniture, so we're going to have to stick the radiator there, I can't fit that in now.
Yeah, I love it. And I remember on the back of our conversation, the first thing that struck me was, and just going back to the point about the content, was there's a passion there, there's an expertise there, clearly got the experience, and it's almost like, when we talk about content in this circumstance, it's how do we talk about this in a way, to your phrase, actually inspires that person to think about a radiator in a different way. It's not just a product that heats a room, it's actually one that could potentially make a room aesthetically pleasing, more enjoyable for someone to experience. So I think that's amazing. That's really interesting. I guess, but when we were talking, what kind of piqued your interest in working with us? Was there something in particular?
Obviously, I had a referral from another company that recommended you highly, but actually, it was when I first went on your new website, it popped straight away. That's a Bubbl joke there. But no, it really stood out. It showed you that it showed me that you cared about how you presented yourself. I looked at multiple agencies. As I always do, I get 3 or 4 sort of quotes and 3 or 4 proposals from various companies, and make a decision based on that. But your first impression was very, very good. It showed sort of both you yourself and as a company that it was, you wanted to present yourself in a way that made me feel like, oh, you could do the same for us. You put your team front and center on the website, I believe, if I remember right, and the way you talk, the way sort of the content was on the website, the way you talked about the business, I felt was really positive and made me think these people are writing in a similar sort of style to what I want. And it kind of just sort of clicked immediately there. So even though I had sort of good proposals from other companies, it was the tone that I got straight away, the tone from the conversations with you initially. I think we kind of were on the same page almost straight away, and there wasn't. I quite like pushback from people sometimes and saying, this is the wrong idea, but I felt this was the right idea, and you immediately felt this was the right idea and the right sort of tone to take, and that it could really work, and it was something a little bit different to what everyone else in the market was doing, but not so out there that it would seem wrong, and yeah, that's what really sold me on Bubbl.
Interesting. No, I appreciate that. And it's been, we took the rebrand actually took us a lot longer than we were expecting, but trying to figure out that tone, especially when it's your own, is very difficult. And we wanted it to feel natural and authentic and conversational, and wanted people to, to invite in. And, that was a journey. I remember when we were working on your tone of voice, actually, when Lisa and Henna came out to see you, I think that experience was invaluable, because I think they came back, and I think Lisa's phrase was, that is the coolest company you've seen, or, and it was such a fun day for them. I remember that actually that experience alone, they got themselves around the business. And Lisa's always said, the best companies to work with are the most boring. Now, you're not as boring as a normal radiator company, but you're not in the most exciting. Hopefully this isn't a surprise, and
Yeah,
we're still friends right
yeah,
now. But actually taking a boring brand or a boring industry and then trying to make fun out of it, I felt from
mm,
our conversations we could do that, and you were up for it, and that's been fun to do. So yeah, appreciate that. I guess moving on from that is, for the last 4 or 5 months that we've been working together, what results have you seen and benefits to the business?
well, I mean, the really obvious one is social media. Is our Facebook page has so much more engagement.
Mm,
It's like night and day. Where we were getting sort of maybe a reach of like 20 to 30 people on a post, it's
mm,
now 4 to 500. We're
really?
getting so much interaction on some of these posts. It's amazing. And I think we've got 1,000 more likes or something than we had at the
Mm,
start. It's really going so well on Facebook and Instagram.
mm,
Um, that yeah, that's the real obvious result so far. Um, like when you just sort of look at it. When I dive deeper into the numbers,
mm,
I can see the impact that it's actually having on the website and the
mm.
traffic. And yeah, the growth is beyond what I was expecting at this stage.
And to be fair, it's also hard to predict as well from our point of view.
Yeah.
I remember in the first couple of weeks, actually, we found a really big technical issue,
Hmm.
which obviously took some time, but really needed us to dive into that. I remember that was fun, and that's actually really good. Just for someone listening to this and thinking,
Yeah.
technical SEO, why do I need to do that? Actually, it's like you say, it could be night and day, and then
Yeah, and that turned out to be a really simple thing to fix in the end. That was
yeah,
basically we were exceeding our crawl budget,
yeah,
Google crawl budget, because it was crawling all of the filterable pages.
yeah,
So all we did was it just blocked the bot from crawling the filters,
yeah.
and all of a sudden, overnight, almost like pages just started going up in ranking, because Google was actually able to see them all,
Yeah,
and they just started appearing for keywords that they weren't before. And yeah, I mean that was effectively just one line in a file to fix. It was
yeah,
you know
yeah.
an amazing thing.
I still remember when we found it, we're like, there's something not right here. So we started discussing it as a team and
Mm,
going, this is not right. Because I remember what we were getting back from the developer wasn't, initially we were like, there's got to be more to this.
hmm.
Let's dig a bit deeper. And it's funny, right? Now that we know, the actual fix is easy.
Yeah,
It's the problem, and then
yeah,
identifying the problem and then going into it and then going in a tangent and then coming back. But actually, ultimately, the fix is so easy.
yeah,
Is that kind of example of a plumber who kind of hits the right nut and then
yeah.
fixes the problem within a second. And it's how do you get to fixing the right thing? And I
Mm,
remember finding that with your site. And to be fair, with larger sites, especially e-commerce brands
hmm.
or very large sites, we tend to find this situation, especially from a technical SEO perspective. There's like one thing that could just move the
Yeah.
needle. What about the business? Like a bit more detail in terms of like what areas have grown. Is there a particular area that's grown that you were surprised by, or is there anything
Um,
that comes to mind?
so the obviously it's the retail side of the business that's grown massively
Mm,
over this time period, which is all through the website.
mm,
Um, the areas that have actually grown are I so designer radiators as a search term is like arguably the most competitive search term we have to
mm,
compete on. Um, we were ranking fairly well for it already, but when Lisa first said, "Right, this is the keyword we're going after," I was a little bit surprised because I thought we should go for some other sort of low-hanging fruit kind of keywords to just sort of raise overall search, an organic traffic,
mm.
early on to get some sort of quick wins. And she was like, "No, this is the one. This is the one that gets 10, 15,000 searches a month. This is the
Right.
one that if you can get up to the top, it's
Yeah.
going to make the biggest difference." And I was like, "Okay, you're the expert. See what happens." And yeah, I mean, the sales that have come through from there and from the keywords relating to that on that page has just been amazing to see. And I honestly, I was like, yeah, okay, we'll see. But yeah, it's we're now sort of really going for it, and we've got new content that's just gone on, and
Yeah,
so it's already improved without any new content. It was just
yeah,
getting going, just gradually rising up.
yeah.
We've had new content just go on, so who knows? It could be rank one, and that's our most competitive keyword that we'll you know end up being rank one for, and then the sky's the limit really with everything else. So
Totally,
yeah.
totally. And just talking about content, it's I don't know if you know this, but every month we have like a creative brainstorm,
Mm,
and you know, Radiators is definitely one of them, because it's better to get a number of people involved to get ideas of content. And I think the team, you know, have had so much fun with thinking about content ideas and creative ideas.
hmm
And you know, some of the designs that have gone on the site with the content, especially with the radiator covers, and it's great to see how that's now performing. How have you found like the overall content? And I guess you've already spoken about social media, but how have you found, you know, the content overall, I guess, and how that's benefited?
Sorry, you froze there mid question.
Ah, okay, sorry about that. I'll just rephrase that. So how have you found the overall content? You know, we've had a lot of fun being creative with with content ideas, and then adding design to
Mm,
content, or you know, some of the animation and the gifs.
yeah, I
How have you found all
there
that?
was the post. The first one that really stood out was the post on the uh, radiator covers. So obviously it's something we don't sell,
Mm,
and the aim of that post was to actually give customers a reason and informed explanation of how radiator covers actually negatively impact your heating of your house, basically, and your rooms, and that they actually cost you more money.
mm,
Um, because it's a very big search term
mm,
that we obviously don't have products for,
mm,
because it's kind of counter to what we sell.
mm.
Um, but we wanted to look at a way to maybe try and target that. And Lisa sort of dived into it and said, actually, this is somewhere where we could do really well on these related keywords. And the content came back, and it had this. First of all, it was really well thought out, and it a lot of detail. And
Sorry, just it cut out for about
okay,
15 seconds. The bit I heard was it was really well thought out.
yeah, it was really well thought out. I read through it and I was like, I've actually learned something from this. Um, it went into a lot of detail about exactly what the issues were with radiator covers, and it
Yeah.
went into a lot of examples of. It even showed examples of how a radiator cover could work,
Mm,
which I thought was good as well. It was a very balanced article, and sort of the sort of radiator cover that would actually work well with the radiator without causing too much heat loss.
mm,
Um, but yeah, what really jumped out was the animation in the middle that
mm.
actually explained
That was cool.
sort of how heat convects around a room.
Yeah,
And yeah, I wasn't expecting that at all. We kind of talked about it one week, and the next week there was this whole article done with
yeah,
images and animations and
yeah.
everything, and it was
I,
really impressive.
I love the animation too. I mean, I wasn't expecting it. You know,
Mm,
some of this content, you know, is just, you know, is created, and then I'll be nosy sometimes, and I'll look at the content, and I'll look at the design, and I saw it. I was like, that's such a brilliant idea.
yeah,
That's genius. But yeah,
yeah, it was. It stood out immediately. I shared it around
yeah,
to my team, and they were all just like they couldn't believe we had content of this level.
yeah.
Um, now on our website, it's kind of it raises the professionalism of the website so much.
Totally. And it goes,
Um,
I guess it takes you beyond selling radiators to now educating the.
to now educating, which goes back to that voice at the beginning where we said, we want to be able to educate people in a way that was really interesting and easy to understand. And this article hit that perfectly.
Love it, love it. I know with that there's still more work to be done because it's an iterative process. We've
Mm,
been talking about that, about how do we now get even, how do we get that piece, now it's out there live,
yeah,
how do we iterate on it again to now start jumping up the rankings? But where we are now is a really
yeah,
good place. So no, that's amazing. Would you recommend us to other people?
absolutely. Um, I can't fault any of the work that's been done. I
Amazing.
can't fault the interactions I have with your team. Communication is second to none. I'd say
Mhm.
E- every single week I get a report of the work that's been done, the work that's going to be done, how that's affected
Mhm.
rankings and things like that. Um, any kind of feedback I give is acted upon almost immediately. Um, and we've I have conversations with Lisa that we come up with ideas between us. We work on sort of plans and sort of a roadmap going forward. And yeah, her knowledge has been fantastic. I've learned quite a lot from her. And I've been in sort of the web business for a long time, developing websites before managing them.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, I've learned so much just in a short time
Brilliant.
working with her. So
Like I was saying just before the interview, I might need to be careful about how I share
yeah,
this feedback with her. I'm sure that like the head's we're gonna have to tailor maybe cut this bit out of the interview. I might
mm,
need to do that, but no, I really appreciate that. And now just turning this to you for a couple of minutes.
mm.
You know, you've been in business for how many years have you been in
So
business?
yeah, we've been in business what 5, 6 years now. The parent company, the wholesale side of the business, 8 years. So
Okay, so you know a fair bit of time. For other businesses listening in
mhm.
or watching the video, is if you could pick one piece of advice, what would you say? Not to put you on the spot here, but wh-
So
where
I
do you
mean,
think your growth is coming from? If you was to maybe answer
think
that important question.
okay. Our growth is coming from um, sort of laser focusing in on what we do well.
Hmm.
So we tried diversifying in the past,
Hmm.
expanding out into different types of products, bathrooms, things like that,
Hmm.
and it didn't work. And we had to have a serious look at where we wanted to be as a business and what we wanted to do. We
Hmm.
realised what we're good at, what we're knowledgeable on, is radiators. What we have the resources to do that a lot of our competition don't do is actually hold stock and supply radiators on a fast service to customers. Um, and what we also have is knowledge of technology. My background is technology, um, so we looked at ways to improve efficiency in an industry that is sorely lacking in it in a lot of ways. Um, and yeah, so where our growth has come from in the last couple of years has been all direct customer sales rather than wholesale. And although all these implementations and technology have been in the wholesale side of the business as well, the growth comes from the retail side because we we transitioned those technologies into the retail side.
Hmm.
We transitioned the thought processes behind it of focusing in on what we do well,
Hmm.
and offering a service that's better than our competition, and then realizing that we haven't projected that well enough,
Hmm.
and partnering with companies like yours to say, how do we do that? How do we
Hmm.
get our voice out there to say, look, we know what we're doing
Hmm.
and we do it really well. And the growth in the last 6 months
Hmm.
has been getting that voice out there, because we were already doing all of this sort of stuff. We were just not making that clear to people
Yeah.
that they could get a better service from us. We weren't getting that reach to say, buy from us and you'll get your radiator next day. You'll get it at a cheaper price than somewhere else. You'll get full warranties if something goes wrong. You know, um, if you don't like it, we'll come and pick it up free of charge. That kind of thing. But without having sort of the megaphone to say all
Mm.
of that stuff to people. It was like we were whispering it.
Mm.
And now our voice is being heard,
Mm.
and we're benefiting from it. And all of that has happened in the space of 6 months.
Yeah, and it's that focus that you talk about. It's so
Mm.
important. It's something I think about a lot. My lights actually just gone off, hence the
Okay.
light difference. So the obvious last question is,
Mm.
for those watching this or listening in,
Yeah.
and they're either refurbishing their house
Yeah.
or moving house, or they're just like really tired of those boring radiators.
Yeah.
Where would they go to find the best radiators in the world?
So naturally, they'd go to the heating boutique to find a design radiator that will suit whatever style they want,
Yeah,
but without breaking the bank.
love it. Amazing. Well, thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Hope the people that are listening in or watching find this useful. But yeah, Dan, thanks a lot. Cheers.
Thank you for having me.